Well, let's stay on the West Coast. Let's talk about Trent Bray at Oregon State. Uh, I think Oregon State fans, this was the guy that they wanted. I think you saw the formula with Jonathan Smith. You get an alum that cares a lot about the program, that knows the program really well, and you go with that. Even the Mike Riley, like Mike Riley, he didn't go to Oregon State, but he grew up in Corvallis, so like he knows, like that's the formula I think for this Oregon State team, and this is such a key hire because, of course, as we know, with conference realignment, Oregon State's kind of like on the outside looking in, and it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot, and you got a lot of guys transferring out of there that you didn't want to see transferring out of there, and it's really hard. Like when you don't have a conference, you're not going to be making that money. Now, if they sue the Pac-12 and end up getting a bag, that's a little bit different. Maybe a couple nicer facilities, but this is a tough job, and it was probably a tough coaching search if you ask me. But I think sticking in house is probably the right move. So, what are your thoughts on this hire?
Yeah, you mentioned it's a tough situation. I mean, the Pac-12 messed up just catastrophically, and you saw that the breakdown with everything happened. Every man for themselves, and Oregon State was on the outside looking in. And I like what they did with the Mountain West. If they make some money from the Pac-12, that's good on that. I like the continuity hire here in a time of huge turnover and change. A guy you trust in the building that players can relate to. I think is a good thing. A guy that seems to be, from what I see, a huge Oregon State guy. Stick with it there. But you mentioned, though, it's going to be a tough turnaround. It really, really is. You lose two quarterbacks. You lose your running. Well, your running back's coming back, but he obviously had some offseason issues with the law, and you lose your two tackles. Silas Bolden, you don't know about him. You got some defensive players really good. A tight end out too. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, this was a really, really talented team, and it's kind of being, scavenged by some high end Power Five football programs because of all the talent there. And credit Jonathan Smith for doing that. When he took over, it was not a great job. He left it in a better spot than it was, but at the same time, like now things that weren't his fault. Like it's a tough job, and I like Trent Bray hire. We'll give our grades later, but yeah, I'm really, really rooting for him, and I think this was the right move. I don't know if it's the best long-term move, but I think you have to save face for the next couple of years and try to, pull together as much as you can and continue to feed off of the energy that Jonathan Smith gave you. And it sucks that he left after everything he did for you, after being an Oregon State guy himself. But you also have to understand, like, that's the reality of the situation is like, this is a business, and Michigan State has a pretty nice check that can be generational for him and his family. So I congratulate him for it, but I think Trent Bray is the guy here for at least the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, and it's also hard too. Like, look, he was obviously an internal promotion, did not go with Jonathan Smith to Michigan State, but a lot of other people did. So that coaching staff is entirely new, right? You keep Hinson and Perkins, which I think Oregon State fans, if I had to guess, you're pretty happy about that. And now Gunderson and Devan come back to Corvallis as well. I think he's done an okay job there, managing the staff with what he could and plugging some of those holes. I don't know. I guess they aren't home run hires necessarily. I don't know. I'm not an Oregon State fan, so I feel like when you're an Oregon State fan, there's different things work. Like not like when I think of a home run hire, right? Like to them that might not be a home run hire. I don't know, or maybe they might be really happy right now. But when I look at this and the expectations, I guess we'll talk about the expectations because now they play a much different schedule. You're playing Mountain West teams. My expectation for Oregon State, given the resource gap between them and the rest of the Mountain West, you should be winning 8 to 10 games yearly. Is that crazy? What are your expectations?
Yeah, that sounds about right, especially early on.
If they continue playing this Mountain West schedule, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, if you get a brutal out of conference slate, which you might have to do to make some money, um, it could be maybe 7 to 9 wins, but yeah, 8 to 10 sounds about right.
Yeah. But and that brings me to the grades. Because again, I don't know. It's hard to put the expectations on this because we don't know how this is going to change, right? We don't know how their scheduling is going to change, but I feel weird about this. This feels kind of like a transition coach to me. Feels like it was the right hire, but I don't know that it's going to work out necessarily long term. I give it a B minus. Meaning that he totally could exceed expectations. I kind of or meet expectations. I kind of expect him to kind of just do the thing, right? He could end up being a long tenure coach and just meet expectations, and the athletic department might be okay with that. But I have a weird feeling that I don't know that it might not work out the way that he wants it to. If he ends up turning this ship around the way that Jonathan Smith did, all credit to him, man. And I think if he works out there, I think he's staying there, right? And we thought about that with Jonathan Smith, but Trent Bray kind of got a taste of that, and he's been fairly vocal about that, feeling a little misled. And I'm sure some of these players felt a little misled. He's been pretty vocal about that. And he's a good friend of Jonathan Smith's too. So I think he's there through and through. If this ends up working out, this would be an electric hire in hindsight if this works out.
I think you know what you're going to get from him, though. Like, and I think that's part of the reason why they got that hire. You know exactly what kind of person he is, kind of leader. He's obviously a really good defensive coordinator. I mean, as soon as he got there, he stepped in. That defense took a next step to a pretty elite level in the Pac-12. He's actually from the West Coast, the Northeast. I'm sorry, the Northwest there from Pullman, Washington. Our friends, the Cougars over there in Washington State. But yeah, you mentioned I'm gonna go B here, a little bit higher than Trent Bray than you are. But I just think my expectation might be a little bit lower than yours, and but I think we're in agreements here. Like transition coach, I don't know if I would go so far as to say that. I think he earned the right to get this job. I think he's certainly qualified for it. But in terms of like situationally, yes, like I think what helped him having this job. If Jonathan Smith just left right 2 years, like a year ago, right after his successful year, and nobody knew about the Pac-12 conference, like it imploding, this would be a pretty hot job, a hotter job. I think it would have been some external candidates would have had their names thrown in the ring there, but yeah, I don't want to compare it to Mississippi State and Zach Arnett, but it seems like, I think it'll work out better than Zach Arnett, if that makes sense. I think it helps you. They're going to play 6 games in the Mountain West. You're going to recruit better than them, at least right away. You should have funding. I hope you have funding there at the NIL, because it's not your school's fault for screwing you at your commissioner of the Pac-12. We'll see. But who knows? Like they could find their way into the Big 12 or some other conference too down the line. But as of right now, yeah, I think B is about right.
That's pretty fair. I really hope this works out, man. I really, really hope it works out.
I'm looking at their schedule next year. I hope they go 12-0. I really do. I think you can 11-1.
Man, is that possible? A little college football playoff berth at
Well, wouldn't that be awesome? And you're playing some other former Pac-12 schools. I mean, right now it's obviously scheduled to change. You only have 6 scheduled conference games. I'm sure you will play probably Washington State. I don't know if that'll be the 7th or that will be one of the 6th. Then you have at least 4 or 5 to 6 more games on top of that. So we'll see what kind of schedule that shakes out. I would assume if you're scheduling this late, you'll probably be in the G5 ranks or in the FCS ranks when you're playing them. And ideally you'd be favored pretty heavily in those games. So you could win a lot. And I think that'd do a lot for the confidence of this program, for the direction and the future of this team, if you can kind of light load your schedule and then really take advantage of it and be like, yeah, look at us now,
Hey guys, MD here. Just here to invite you to the Retro Sophomore College Football Bowl pool. The link to join will be in the description down below. The winner, what do they get? A chance to be a guest on the Retro Sophomore podcast. Of course,
But to qualify for that, you got to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. So make sure you click that subscribe button down below. When you sign up, all you got to do is just pick a team, right? See here at Miami, Ohio versus App State. This example selected Miami, and they have 12 confidence points on it. You rate these games 1 to 43, and it's gonna be a blast. I can't wait to have you guys on. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Thank you.